If you ever stop at a highway rest area after midnight, don't stay longer than necessary, don't wander too far from your vehicle, and if you notice someone watching you from the darkness, leave immediately. Because sometimes the people you encounter on lonely roads aren't looking for directions, they're waiting for an opportunity. Years later, Ryan Mitchell still refuses to stop at roadside rest areas after dark. He'd rather drive for hours with an empty gas tank. He'd rather risk falling asleep behind the wheel. Because every time he sees one of those blue highway signs pointing toward a rest stop, he remembers the man standing at the edge of the trees. This is Tales of the Dark, and this is the story of the man at the rest stop. In the summer of 2022, 23-year-old Ryan Mitchell was driving from Colorado to Tennessee. He had recently finished college and accepted a new job in Nashville. To save money, he decided to make the trip alone. The drive would take nearly 2 days. For most of the journey, everything went exactly as expected. Long stretches of highway, gas stations, fast food, podcasts, music, nothing unusual. By the second night, however, exhaustion began catching up with him. Around 1:30 in the morning, he crossed into rural Missouri. The highway became increasingly isolated, traffic disappeared. Towns became rare, even gas stations seemed miles apart. Ryan considered getting a motel, but he wanted to reach Nashville as quickly as possible. He convinced himself he could keep driving. About 40 minutes later, he noticed a highway sign. Rest area 1 mile. The idea sounded perfect. He could stretch his legs, use the restroom, grab a drink from the vending machines, then continue driving. The rest area appeared almost deserted. Only 3 vehicles occupied the parking lot: a pickup truck, a small sedan, and a semi-truck parked near the far end. Bright overhead lights illuminated most of the area. Beyond those lights sat a dense tree line, dark, silent, uninviting. Ryan parked near the building and stepped outside. The cool night air felt refreshing. For the first time in hours, he felt awake. The rest area itself looked normal: clean bathrooms, vending machines, picnic tables, nothing suspicious. He entered the building, used the restroom, and purchased a bottle of water. The entire stop took less than 10 minutes. As he exited the building, something caught his attention: movement near the trees. Ryan stopped walking. A man stood at the edge of the tree line, watching. The distance made it difficult to see details, but he could clearly tell the man wasn't moving, not even slightly. At first, Ryan assumed he was another traveler, maybe someone taking a break, maybe someone walking a dog. Then he noticed something. The man wasn't looking around, wasn't checking his phone, wasn't smoking. He was staring directly at him. Ryan felt a flicker of discomfort. Still, he brushed it off. There were plenty of innocent explanations. He returned to his vehicle. Before getting inside, he glanced toward the trees again. The man remained there, standing perfectly still. Watching, Ryan locked his doors and started the engine. For a few moments, he considered leaving immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone. No signal, not even one bar. That surprised him. Most rest areas along major highways had decent coverage, apparently not this one. Ryan tossed the phone onto the passenger seat, then froze. Something moved outside his window. His head snapped toward the parking lot. Nothing. Everything appeared normal. The pickup truck remained parked. The semi-truck remained parked. The sedan remained parked. The man, however, was gone. Ryan sat upright. His eyes searched the darkness. The tree line, the picnic area, the building, nothing. The man had disappeared. A wave of relief washed over him. Maybe he'd simply walked away. Maybe Ryan had overreacted. He shifted into drive. Then noticed something in his side mirror. His stomach tightened. A figure stood directly behind his vehicle, close enough to touch it. The man. Ryan slammed the brakes. His heart began racing. How had he crossed the parking lot so quickly? Only seconds earlier he'd been near the trees. Now he stood behind the car, motionless, watching. Ryan immediately locked the doors again, even though they were already locked. The man remained still, no expression, no movement, just watching. For several seconds, neither moved. Then the man slowly smiled. The expression felt wrong, not friendly, not reassuring, just unsettling. Ryan didn't wait any longer. He accelerated toward the exit. The man disappeared from view. Within moments, the rest area vanished behind him. Ryan exhaled. His hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. The farther he drove, the more ridiculous the entire situation felt. The man had probably been harmless. A traveler, a drifter, someone odd but not dangerous. Eventually, Ryan laughed at himself. He was letting exhaustion affect his judgment. 20 minutes later, he relaxed completely. Then his headlights illuminated something on the road shoulder ahead. A person standing beside the highway. Ryan immediately sat upright. As his vehicle approached, the figure became clearer. His blood turned cold. It was the same man, standing beside the road, smiling, watching passing traffic. The highway stretched for miles in both directions. There was no possible way. The man couldn't have left the rest area and arrived here before him. Not on foot, not without a vehicle, yet there he stood. Ryan gripped the steering wheel tighter. His pulse accelerated. The man turned his head, following Ryan's vehicle as it passed, maintaining eye contact until darkness swallowed him again. Fear settled deep into Ryan's stomach. For the first time all night, he genuinely considered calling police. But what would he say? A man was standing near a road. That wasn't a crime. Still, something felt wrong, very wrong. About 10 minutes later, Ryan glanced into his rearview mirror. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then his heart nearly stopped. Headlights, a vehicle far behind him closing the distance, fast. The road had been empty for miles. Now a pickup truck rapidly approached from behind. Ryan watched as it drew closer, 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 until it was only a few car lengths away. His stomach dropped. The truck matched the one parked at the rest area. Same color, same shape, same damage along the front bumper. The truck remained behind him for several minutes, never passing. Never falling back, just following. Ryan's grip tightened. A feeling deep inside told him something was terribly wrong. Then the truck flashed its headlights, once, twice, 3 times, as though signaling him to pull over. Ryan ignored it. The truck continued following, and then he noticed a face in the driver's seat, a face illuminated by dashboard light. The same smiling man, still watching him, still smiling, and somehow the smile looked even wider now. The end of that encounter. 26-year-old Emily Carter had lived in apartment buildings her entire life. She was used to hearing neighbors through thin walls, used to elevators breaking down, used to seeing strangers in hallways. Nothing about apartment living usually bothered her. That changed the night she noticed the woman. Emily had recently moved into a 12-story apartment building on the outskirts of Indianapolis. The building wasn't luxurious, but it was affordable and close to work. For the first few months, life was uneventful. She worked during the day, came home in the evening, watched television, slept. Everything felt normal. Then one night, shortly after midnight, she stepped outside her apartment to take a bag of trash to the chute at the end of the hallway. As she walked down the corridor, she noticed someone standing near the emergency exit. An elderly woman, gray hair, long dark coat. Hands folded in front of her. At first, Emily thought nothing of it. The woman simply stood there, silent, motionless, watching the hallway. Emily tossed her trash and returned to her apartment. The next night she saw the woman again, same location, same posture, same expression. Standing near the emergency exit, watching, Emily assumed she was a resident, maybe someone struggling with insomnia, maybe someone waiting for a family member. Still, something felt odd. The woman never seemed to move. Every time Emily saw her, she was standing in exactly the same spot. Days turned into weeks. The sightings continued, always late at night, always in the same location. One evening, Emily mentioned the woman to a neighbor. The neighbor frowned. What woman? The older woman near the emergency exit. The neighbor looked confused. I've never seen anyone there. Emily laughed. She's there almost every night. The neighbor shook his head. No idea who you're talking about. The conversation bothered her more than she expected. The following night she paid closer attention. At around 1 in the morning, she opened her apartment door. The woman stood there again, motionless, watching. This time Emily decided to approach her. Slowly she walked down the hallway. The distance between them shrank, 50 feet, 40, 30. The woman never moved, never blinked, never reacted. Then the elevator doors opened behind Emily. She glanced back for only a second. When she looked forward again, the woman was gone. Emily stopped walking, her pulse quickened. The hallway was empty, the emergency exit remained closed. There was nowhere she could have gone, no doors had opened, no footsteps echoed through the corridor. She had simply vanished. Emily returned to her apartment feeling unsettled. Over the next several days, she began noticing other strange things, small things, easy things to dismiss. Footsteps outside her apartment at odd hours. The sound of someone walking slowly through the hallway, doors opening and closing, occasional knocking. Always after midnight, always when the building should have been quiet. Then came the security footage. One evening, Emily mentioned the woman to the building manager. To her surprise, he agreed to review hallway recordings. The next day, he called her into his office. His expression seemed strange, almost uncomfortable. He played the footage from the previous week. Emily watched carefully. The hallway appeared empty, night after night, hour after hour. No elderly woman, no figure near the emergency exit, nothing. Emily felt confused. "I saw her." The manager didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened an older file. A photograph appeared on the screen. Emily's stomach tightened. The woman in the photograph was identical to the woman she'd been seeing. Same face, same grey hair, same coat. The manager sighed. "That's Margaret Holloway." Emily stared at the image. "Who is she?" The answer chilled her. "She lived on this floor." A pause. "About 9 years ago." Emily felt her stomach sink. "What happened to her?" The manager hesitated, then answered quietly, "Nobody knows." According to police reports, Margaret disappeared one night without warning. Her apartment remained locked from the inside. Her belongings remained untouched. No evidence suggested she had left. No evidence suggested she had stayed. She simply vanished. The case was never solved. Emily left the office feeling shaken. She told herself the similarities were a coincidence. They had to be. Yet deep down she knew better. That night she couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning she heard footsteps, slow footsteps, directly outside her apartment. The sounds continued for several minutes, then stopped. Silence filled the hallway. Emily cautiously approached her door. She looked through the peephole. Nothing. The corridor appeared empty. Relieved, she stepped back. Then something blocked the peephole from the outside. A face, an eye staring directly through the lens. Emily gasped and stumbled backward. The eye remained there, watching, unmoving. Several terrifying seconds passed, then it disappeared. Emily immediately called building security. By the time guards arrived, the hallway was empty. No sign of anyone, no sign of the woman. The following evening, Emily returned from work feeling exhausted. She entered the elevator and rode to her floor. The doors opened. Her heart nearly stopped. The elderly woman stood directly outside the elevator, closer than ever before. Only a few feet away. For the first time, the woman smiled. Then she raised one hand and pointed toward Emily's apartment before slowly opening her mouth as if trying to say something. Emily backed into the elevator. The doors closed. And when she looked through the narrowing gap one last time, the woman was gone. The next morning, something waited outside Emily's apartment door, a small folded note. The paper appeared old, yellowed, fragile. Written across the front were 4 words, "Don't stay here tonight." At first, Emily assumed someone was playing a prank. Then she turned the paper over and saw a signature. Margaret Holloway, the same woman who had disappeared 9 years earlier, the same woman no camera could see, and the same woman standing outside her apartment every night. That evening, Emily packed a bag and left. Hours later, a fire broke out in the unit directly beside hers. Investigators later concluded it was accidental, but had Emily remained asleep inside her apartment, she likely would not have survived. To this day, she still doesn't know who left the warning or how, But sometimes when she thinks about that hallway, one question still keeps her awake. If Margaret disappeared 9 years ago, who was standing outside her apartment door, the end of that encounter? 24-year-old Noah Bennett had been planning the trip for months. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend, just 3 friends escaping the city for a few days. No traffic, no work, no phones constantly ringing, just peace and quiet in the mountains. At least that was the plan. Noah, his friend Caleb, and Caleb's cousin Mason rented a small cabin deep in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. The nearest town sat almost 30 miles away. The nearest neighbor was even farther. The rental listing described the cabin as perfect for anyone looking to completely disconnect from the outside world. After what happened there, Noah would never forget those words. The drive into the mountains took most of the afternoon. By the time they arrived, the sun was already setting behind the trees. The cabin itself looked exactly like the photos, small, weathered, surrounded by dense forest. A narrow dirt road was the only way in or out. The isolation immediately felt unsettling. Still, they laughed it off. That night they grilled food, played cards, and sat outside watching the stars. Everything felt normal, peaceful. Around midnight they finally went inside. The forest beyond the windows became a wall of darkness. The kind of darkness that made it impossible to see more than a few feet beyond the porch. At approximately 2 in the morning, Noah woke unexpectedly. At first he wasn't sure why. Then he heard it, footsteps, crunch, 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 slow footsteps moving through the gravel outside the cabin. Noah sat upright. The footsteps continued, calm, steady, unhurried. Someone was walking around the cabin. He listened carefully. The footsteps passed beneath his bedroom window, then continued toward the back of the property. A few moments later they returned, making a complete circle around the cabin. Noah checked his phone. No signal. Perfect. The footsteps continued, crunch, crunch, crunch. Eventually Noah left his room and found Caleb awake in the living room. The look on Caleb's face immediately confirmed he heard them too. "You hear that?" Noah nodded. For several minutes neither spoke. The footsteps never stopped. Round and round the cabin, always at the same pace, always maintaining the same distance. Finally Mason joined them. The 3 men sat silently listening. Nobody wanted to be the first to look outside. Eventually curiosity won. Caleb carefully pulled aside a curtain. Nothing. The yard appeared empty. The porch appeared empty. The forest remained still, yet the footsteps continued, crunch, 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 as though someone invisible was circling the building. For the next hour the sound never stopped. Every few minutes one of them checked a different window. Nobody appeared, nothing moved, no flashlights, no animals. No people, just darkness and footsteps. Then suddenly the sound stopped. The silence felt even worse. The 3 friends remained awake until sunrise. The moment daylight arrived, they stepped outside. Noah expected to find animal tracks. Maybe a deer, maybe a bear. Instead, they discovered footprints, human footprints. Dozens of them. The tracks completely surrounded the cabin. One circle, then another, then another. Whoever made them had walked around the cabin countless times. The sight immediately unsettled them, but something else was wrong. The footprints ended at the cabin walls, every set. None led away. None entered the forest. None approached from the road. It was as if the person had appeared beside the cabin, walked in circles all night, then vanished. The 3 men spent the day trying to rationalize what they had seen. Maybe the ground had hidden older tracks. Maybe rain had washed evidence away. Maybe there was some explanation they weren't considering. That evening they almost left. Almost. Instead, they convinced themselves they were overreacting. After all, nothing had actually happened. No threats, no damage, no intruder, just footprints, so they stayed. The second night was worse. Much worse. At exactly 2 in the morning, the footsteps returned. The same pace, the same rhythm, the same endless circling. This time, however, there was something else. Knocking, a single knock against the cabin wall, then another, then another. The knocks moved around the building, following the footsteps. As though someone was walking around the cabin while dragging their hand along the wood siding. Tap, crunch, tap, crunch, tap, crunch. The sound continued for nearly 2 hours. Then, around 4 in the morning, it stopped. A few moments later, someone knocked directly on the front door. 3 slow knocks, the men froze, nobody moved. 3 more knocks followed, louder this time, then silence. Noah slowly approached a nearby window. He pulled the curtain aside, his blood turned cold. A man stood on the porch. The stranger faced the front door, tall, thin, wearing a dark jacket. His back was turned toward the cabin window. For several seconds he remained perfectly still. Then his head slowly rotated, not his body, only his head, until he was looking directly at Noah through the glass. The movement felt wrong, unnatural, predatory. Noah immediately dropped the curtain. The 3 friends retreated to a bedroom and locked the door. None of them slept. At sunrise they packed their belongings and left. They never returned. Several months later, Noah received an unexpected call. The cabin owner wanted to ask questions about their stay. Apparently another group had rented the property shortly afterward. During their visit, they reported hearing footsteps circling the cabin, just like Noah's group. The owner initially dismissed the complaint until the guests sent photographs of footprints, the exact same footprints. When Noah saw the images, his stomach dropped. Because among the dozens of tracks surrounding the cabin, one set stood out, bare footprints, large, deep, distinct, the same bare footprints Noah had photographed months earlier, the exact same footprints, identical in every detail, as though they had never moved, as though they had remained there waiting for the next visitors, waiting for the next night. And according to the cabin owner, people still report hearing footsteps around the property, always after 2 in the morning, always circling, always just outside the light, if you are brave enough to hear more nightmares. Subscribe to Tales of the Dark, and if you have your own terrifying experience, leave it in the comments or send your story by email. Maybe your nightmare will become the next story told here.